land tax. These are the hidden rules that rob you blind. And you thought the AT0 was bad. Wait until you meet his silent cousin, the land tax reaper. No warning, no mercy, just an annual surprise invoice for daring to own something with dirt on it. That's right guys, in today's property roast, we're gonna dive into why New South Wales land tax and other states' land tax feels like a bureaucratic fight club that no one talks about but everyone gets punched in the wallet. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about the trap of 2025 land tax rates and thresholds, stamp duty's evil twin, transfer duty, how trust, companies and joint names don't protect you like you think, and why due occupancy homes are in a legal grey zone. And also on top of that, the 3-month deadline that's wrecking settlement budgets at the moment. And on top of that, why first home buyer schemes are rigged with sneaky rules and red tape. And by the end of this video, you probably want to cry or book a strategy call with me before the mobs in Canberra find new ways to skin you alive. So right off the bat guys, firstly, 2025 land tax thresholds. Why no Aussie investor is safe right now. But before we dive straight in, let's zoom out a bit before we zoom in. If you guys who are watching this video think, oh, land tax is a Victorian thing, like with all the headlines that's coming up at the moment, I'm telling you folks, you've missed the memo. Land tax are across the country and state governments are quietly jacking up their land tax at the moment, all the while pretending it's about fairness. And spoiler alert, it's not. So right now, here's a quick breakdown of the 2025 land tax thresholds. I'll throw this on the screen at the moment and let's go through it. Now mind you guys, I'm not making this data up. This data is compiled from state revenue officers as of August 2025. So right now guys, if you look in the data on the screen, you can see on the left hand side, you have New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, WA, Tasmania, ACT and Northern Territory. And then next to that column, there is the tax-free threshold standard rate. As you can see, as you read those data, New South Wales is $1,075,000. So at the moment, guys, if you're totally confused by this table that I put up here at the moment, let me give you an example. For example, in New South Wales, the tax-free threshold is $1,075,000. So if your land value is $1,500,000, the taxable amount is $1,500,000 minus $1,075,000. That equals $425,000. And what happens is to calculate land tax, as you look at this table, it's $425,000 times 1.6% plus $100. That equals, if you do the math correctly, $6,900 per year. Now next, let's look at Victoria, the infamous Victorian land tax, right? Their current tax-free threshold is $50,000 only. So if your land tax value is $500,000, the base amount is flat $975. What happens is you then plus the difference. For example, you have $975, then you plus $500,000 minus $50,000. All right, if you're following along, then you times it by 0.375%. That equals $975 plus $1,687.50. If you do your maths correctly, that's a total of $2,662.50 of a piece of land that's only worth $500,000. So right now, guys, if all the numbers just flew over your head and you don't know what I just said, this is the key takeaway from this. If you look at this calculation over here, this is why Victorians are furious, guys. Like New South Wales, you can own over $1 million worth of dirt before paying a cent on land tax. But in Victoria, guys, you own a block worth more than the price of a second-hand ute and you're already paying. But then, guys, this doesn't make buying in New South Wales any better, right? Because in New South Wales, land tax is calculated on unimproved land value across your portfolio and is not on the property value. So even if you got a cardboard shack sitting on rich dirt, you're on the hook, guys, in 2025. And you know what the kicker, guys? If you read the fine print on Revenue New South Wales, if your land holding tops over $6.47 million, it's a 2% surcharge on your land tax. And according to the Revenue New South Wales, over 170,000 land tax assessments were issued in 2024. They say, quote, land tax is a fair way to raise revenue from those who can't afford it, end quote. But to counter that, according to Property Investment Professionals of Australia, they say, quote, it's a landmine for mum and dad investors, end quote. But here's the kicker, guys. As you see in the prior example, it gets worse outside New South Wales. Like Victoria, it's an absolute rot, guys. Like just recently, they dropped the threshold from $300,000 to $50,000 right now. Like you heard it right. You're just basically owning a patch of dirt with just a measly 50 grand and then boom, you're in the land tax system. Welcome to the Matrix, Neo. And according to the Victorian Treasurer, they said, quote, the changes ensure more equitable contributions, end quote. But to counter that, just to quote one of my investors that have a heavy property portfolio in Victoria, they said, quote, Q, I got a land tax bill today bigger than my rental yield. God damn, end quote. And now moving on to Queensland, it's the same dance but a different tune, guys. Like previously, like a year ago, they were going to include the interstate land holdings in your calculation until public backlash forced them to scrap it. Like according to the Queensland Treasury in 2022, they said, quote, the policy brings fairness to Queenslanders, end quote. But after a lot of public backlash, according to the National Property Investors Council, they reflected the sentiment with this quote. It punished people for investing in other states. That's not fairness. That's bloody greed, end quote. So guys, this is my honest take. Let's be real, guys. This isn't about fairness. It's about squeezing the middle class dry while pretending it's a wealth tax. But then do you guys know who's unaffected by this? The mega landlords with commercial property deductions and entire floors of tax advisors. Like, hey, Gene, if you're watching this video, wink wink, I'm talking about you. So guys, if you've watched thus far, let's throw in some practical tips that you can look out for to stay well ahead of the bloody land tax system. Tip number 1, look at the land value threshold for every state before you diversify, guys. Like go back to the part of the video, take a snapshot or just Google it. You'll see the threshold of different land tax limits per state. At the moment, Victoria is now the most aggressive. And as for old mate Queensland, they try to be sneaky, but they got caught and they got slammed. And we always hear this from the pollies, right? Like according to New South Wales Treasury, they said, quote, land tax is a fair way to raise revenue from those who can't afford it, end quote. But my savage take on this again, guys, it's not fair when valuations are done in bulk by a faceless department and there's no warning. You just get a bill in the letterbox and go, hey, you gotta pay it up because your land is valued this much. And you're wondering, by who? Did they ask me for permission? Like, what the hell? So guys, I would suggest every time you receive a bill from the land tax mobs, I want you to jump onto the New South Wales Valuer Journal website. I'll throw it over here and check your land value average over the last 3 years. Sometimes they might get it wrong. Check that number with the number on your bill and make sure they're using not the market price, but only the land value because that's where it counts. Now, right now in this video, let's segue to land tax's dirty evil cousin, the transfer duty. Because secondly, in this video, we're going to look at stamp duty versus transfer duty. We're going to look at when, how, and who bloody pays for it. Because currently, guys, transfer duty, which was rebranded from stamp duty to kind of make it sound friendly at the moment, which is not. Right now, it's payable within 3 months of signing a contract. Like, for example, you bought a property or you're about to exchange, you got to pay it within 3 months of signing the contract. Unless, guys, you purchase an off-the-plan property, the rules are different. And I'll throw it on the screen over here. Because at the moment, guys, if you're buying an off-the-plan property, it can only be good if you're moving in. For example, you're making it your principal place of residence and you qualify for the 12 months grace period to pay transfer duty instead of the standard 3 months. But it can be bad for you with these changes if you're buying the off-the-plan as an investment property where there's no grace period and you have to pay within 3 months of signing the contract. Now, this new change really sucks because it means you might get caught having to pay stamp duty or transfer duty long before the property is finished, which ultimately affects your cash flow if you're an investor. And most often, guys, this fine print always gets masked by New South Wales Revenue's PR team that says, oh, quote, first home buyers are exempt up to $800,000. We're helping everyday Aussies, end quote. But according to Domain, they say, quote, it's a trap for off-the-plan buyers who don't often read the fine print, end quote. Especially if you're an investor, because New South Wales Revenue loves cashing in on investors. So guys, let me give you some practical tips to avoid this, right? Number 1, always ask your conveyancer or solicitor exactly when transfer duty is payable. Like, don't always assume it's on settlement day. Now, thirdly, in this video, we're gonna look at trusts, companies, and joint ownerships, and what investors must know about how these structures affect your land tax. So at the moment, you're sitting there thinking, hey Q, I got a trust. I should be protected, right bro? Nah, bro, I'm telling you, if you bought a property under a trust, you're paying land tax from the $1, yo. There is no threshold buying properties under a trust. Or for example, you're buying from a company, guys, same system, same consequence, guys. But then you say to me, Q, oh my God, I heard from this anonymous accountant or tax agent. They said, quote, but then family trusts are great for tax planning, end quote. And to counter that, this is me every week. Quote, unless you like paying land tax from $1, go get one, end quote. And let me drop this warning for those that are buying under a trust. If you don't do your due diligence properly, for example, you bought a property under a trust and you forgot or your solicitor or accountant didn't warn you about excluding foreign beneficiaries in the trust, that's a 5% surcharge on the land tax. Like, I don't see it often, but I've seen these new mistakes happen before. And it's sort of like you're buying a $2 million property and gifting New South Wales government $100,000 for fun. So this is my practical tip, guys. If you must use a trust, for example, you want to get more lending from a trust or you want to do some asset protection, always get a legal wording to exclude foreign beneficiaries. I don't care what you get out of this video, but just remember this. And fourthly, in this video, we're going to look at due occupancy rules. Because I know a lot of clients that come to me, they always talk about due occupancy or they have a property that's due occupancy. But have you thought about, does your due occupancy property, for example, you're living in one but you're renting the other one out, still qualifies for exemptions? Like, for example, you live in one side of the duplex and you rent out the other one and you think, oh my God, I'm sweet. Or you live in the granny flats and rent out the main house and you call your accountant and goes like, yeah, that's okay. But then what if you chucked in 2 granny flats? Because I've seen that a lot. So that's when the ATO comes knocking on your door and go, hey, that doesn't fit into the due occupancy tax exemption. Because according to the Revenue New South Wales, they said, quote, just to reassure us, quote, due occupancy is still eligible if it's one extra residential occupancy, end quote. But you know what? A lot of people who base on this statement by Revenue New South Wales, they start getting smart with this, right? Like, a lot of people try to game the system when it comes to due occupancy, right? What they do is, all right, okay, cool. I brought a due occupancy. One of them I live in, one of them I rented out, right? And it's one title. And then they go, all right, I won't get a tax bill for this because I'm smart, right? But then, guys, if you try to subdivide this property, trying to game the system, did you know that this triggers a reassessment? Like, I'm telling you guys, once the block is legally split, the exemption is gone. Let me throw you an example over here, right? You own a block in Parramatta worth $1.6 million in land value, right? You live in the main house and you rent the ground flat out. Assuming the ground flat is legally built, right? Like, do you dodgy laborers out there, make sure it's legally built. And at this point, guys, because of the land values under the threshold, it's free from land tax. But the moment you add a second granny flat, it's no longer exempt. But say, for example, the first granny flat is doing well and you try to add a second granny flat. For example, there's a big piece of land and you add a second granny flat and it doesn't cost you much to build. The moment you do that, land tax will get slapped on you. Or in the next example, you decide to subdivide the piece of land. Say, for example, the same Parramatta block is worth $1.6 million in land value. You decide to subdivide that into 2 400 square meter lots just to build another duplex. I'm telling you, the second lot is now classed as a separate investment property with no PPR exemptions. So this is my practical tip, guys, and it's not financial advice, but do consult your accountant, your advisor, or also your solicitor. Just don't subdivide unless you want to lose your exemption, right? And let's move on to the last part of the video about land tax. If you're thinking about changing beneficiaries and transfer duty, here's the risk that no one talks about. Like, for example, you bought a property under a trust and you think, oh, I'm being smart over here. I'm going to update the trust deed or the gifting shares so I can rearrange different percentages for my different kids. Like, it sounds cool, like something that you can do. But from the revenue land tax mobs, they'll sit back and smile and they'll go, cheers, mate. That'll be another few grand in transfer duty. Because I'm telling you right now, guys, changing beneficial ownership, even inside a trust, can still trigger transfer duty. So even if no one moved into the property, even if nothing was sold, just a clear intention to distribute evenly or differently is enough for the mobs in Canberra to come around your filing cabinets and start sniffing. Because according to Vish Sharma from Revenue New South Wales, he said, quote, even a change in how distributions are made can trigger a dutiable event, end quote. And according to a property tax accountant, he says that, quote, most investors don't find out until after they're hit with a retrospective bill, end quote. And I don't know whether you know, but I've digged into the data. According to Australian Bureau of Statistics, in New South Wales alone, a retrospective transfer duty bills for trust variations has risen by 21% in the financial year of 2023 to 2024. And this is according to Internal Revenue New South Wales audit data. So yeah, guys, like, it blows my mind how so many people think, oh, I'm so smart. I don't need any independent legal advice or independent tax or financial advice when I'm going ahead to make these changes. Like, it blows my mind that, like, most of you are trying to perform a surgery with a butter knife. So yeah, guys, if you made it thus far in this video, yes, it does sound like I'm ranting about land tax, and it is. I am bloody furious about land tax. I have about 8 investment properties, and I'm paying through the nose and the roof with bloody land tax. I'm telling you guys, the game is rigged. But at the end of the day, it's rigged in the favor of those who know the rules. And yes, I'm getting shafted with land tax, but at the end of the day, I'm claiming max amounts of negative gearing. I'm getting a lot of capital growth, and most importantly, I'm paying a shit ton of less tax with the system I've got designed with my financial planners and accountants. So guys, you want to pick my brain and want to do the same thing like me and my many other tens and thousands of clients that have spoken to me after watching this video and my many videos in the last 4 years, I suggest you book a 15-minute strategy call or a 60-minute deep dive for me to design an A-game holistic lending solution combined with my financial planners, my accountants, and my individual vetted independent buyer's agent for you to build an A-game property portfolio whilst jumping through the landmines of the land tax rig system. But then guys, if you're not ready, just hit the like button, hit the follow button if you like more videos like this, and most importantly, smash the share button, share this knowledge to your mate because knowledge is power. And until next time, I'll see you in the next few days for another episode of That's Property Roast.